Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar. In this presentation, you will learn the answers to your top 7 crane and hoist questions. We're going to be covering the reasons why proper inspection of overhead crane and hoist is so important. We'll be discussing the most common concerns, myths, and misconceptions our team has encountered from crane technicians. This is going to be a very informative webinar. Presenting today will be Peter Cooke, our training manager, covering rigging, hoists, and load securement. My name is Gisela Clark. I'm the e-marketing specialist at Columbus McKinnon and will be your host. We are recording the session today, and the recording link will be added to our YouTube channel. All in attendance will receive a link to the recording, and we encourage you to share it. Everyone, as I said earlier, is in listen-only mode, so we encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A pane on the right side of your page. We'll take 5 minutes at the end to answer them. As I said earlier, this will be a very interactive session. With each of the top 7 questions, we're going to be having a polling question. So before Peter covers it, we want to know if you think it's fact or a myth. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Peter so we can begin. Peter?
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. So we'll get started here. And some of the questions, what we'll be covering, and some of the common questions are monorail crane markings, rated capacities on hoisting cranes, load testing requirements, OSHA required monthly inspections, qualifications to repair hoist, frequency of hoist breakdowns, and then kind of one that just always comes up, maybe just out of the realm a little bit, but chain sling latches, and I seem like I'm always interpreting that one for a lot of people, so I threw that one in as a bonus. So let's get started. Again, this is not a substitute for any government regulations or safety standards. We encourage all you to get the applicable safety standards and government regulations and read them. This is just an awareness seminar, and so please don't take this as a way to not get those reference materials. It's very important that you do read that information. So let's start out. Fact or myth, and we'll try to get a little bit interactive here. So the first question, or the statement that a lot of people make, is monorails need to be labeled with rated load. Is that a fact or a myth?
Okay, I'm just now launching the polling question. If you can go ahead and vote, that would be great. And for those of you that are connected via iPad, you can just send me your answer in the Q&A pane because I don't believe that it works. Yes, great. We are at, it looks like 80% think it's a fact, 20% think it's a myth. What do you have to say about that, Peter?
It's a myth. Rated load markings are not required but recommended on monorails. Okay, so right out of the ASME B3011 is what covers monorails. Rated loads of monorails should be marked. If it is marked, it shall be legible from the ground floor. But you would need a qualified person to analyze the structure to be sure that it's adequate for the load that it's going to handle. So if your monorails are marked, I certainly would recommend getting them marked. It's the safe thing to do, but it is whenever you see the word should, that is a recommendation, and shall is that you must do. So it is a should, and they do not have to be marked, monorail crane structures. And just to define a monorail crane, it's a single I-beam with a hoist and trolley on there, but the monorail does not move. It is stationary, so the only thing that can move is the trolley on the hoist. That would be categorized as a monorail type crane. Also in that statement says the rated load of each hoist on our monorail shall be marked. So when you do put hoisting units on there, that you have to have the hoist do have to be marked per the ASME B3016 standard. So there's actually 2 references you need to go by there for reference. So the next one, number 2, rated loads for hoisted trolleys can be different from the crane's rated load. Is that a fact or a myth? Can we have, when you look at that picture there, you see that the bridge is 1,000 pounds rated, the trolleys have 2,000 pound ratings, and the one hoist has a 2,000 pound rating, and the other hoist has a 1,000 pound rating. Is that acceptable? Is that a fact or a myth? Can that be done?
Okay, Peter, it looks like we are at, it's changing. We're now at about 70% fact, 30% myth. Go ahead and you can share your answer.
That is a fact.
Excellent.
So you can do that, all right? It's going to take training on the operator's part to be sure that they do not overload the lowest capacity component on that structure, so that, and really, you know, when it comes down to it, you know, the total combined load is not to exceed the rated load of the bridge. So when you add that all up, you should not ever exceed the rated load of the bridge. But also, you always find the weakest link in the system, and don't never overload the weakest link in any system. So that can be done. Again, it goes back to operator training to be sure that they do not misuse that system in place. Now, what general practice, people like to match up everything, which is a good thing to do, but again, it's not required. And that's what I just stated in there. So you guys, again, goes down to operator training. Okay, number 3. Yearly load tests are not required on hoist and cranes. We get this one all the time.
Okay, so what do you think? Fact or myth? Yearly load tests are not required on hoist and cranes. It looks like 75% think fact, 25%, no, it's like 70-30 for fact versus myth. So Peter, what's the answer?
Fact, okay? So there's no specified time period that is required. Some states do require them every 4 years. I think California is definitely one of them. I forget what the other state is. I'd have to look that up. But the only time that you would need to do a load test if you alter, repair, or modify a load-bearing component. Now, you know, we don't recommend modifications unless approved by the manufacturer. But and newly installed units. So if you're going to install a new unit, we do recommend that you load test the installation, the structure, and the hoist together. Normally, trolleys are not load tested unless you specify you want your trolley load tested at the factory, and then we would have to set that trolley up according to the width of the beam that you're going to apply it to, so that it's an accurate load test for what you're applying. But generally, we batch test these things, and we only test them in when needed, when you request them. So it is recommended by OSHA if you have an OSHA running crane. OSHA being a top running crane and top running hoist, they require a load test at installation, and the manufacturer, CMAA, Manufacturer Association, requires it. But ASME, as it should, said that you should test when you do a reinstall or modification or repair. Number 4, monthly records of inspection are required for hoists, wire rope, chain, and hooks. And the key there is monthly records, meaning a written report needs to be done.
All right, so what do you all think? Fact versus myth? Oh, I think things are shifting the other way now, Peter. We're at, this is going to be very interesting. 50-50 on app. Yeah, 50% think fact, 50% think myth. Boy, we've got a split. Okay, this is going to be interesting.
Well, that's very good because we didn't. That's actually an excellent response because it depends on the type of crane. Okay,
Perfect.
So if you have an OSHA crane on the OSHA regulation 1910-179, that applies to top running overhead and gantry cranes with top running trolley and hoist. That OSHA regulation is actually taken from a 1967 ASME V30.2 standard that they adopted, and they haven't changed it ever since. But that does require monthly inspections of the chain, the wire rope, and the hooks with a certification record that you have done those monthly inspections on there. Now, take the hoist and underhung the hoist, meaning putting it on a trolley, underhang it, however you want to say that. It's not required. It's you are required to do a frequent inspection, but you are not required to document it or have a record of it. So there is a letter of interpretation on that, where they asked ASME that very question, and their response was arbitrary documented monthly inspections are an undue burden and not related to safety without considering consideration of frequency of use, conditions of the equipment or environment. All types of misuse, including offset or loading, are not recommended. So they always kind of do a statement there that says, hey, no misuse is required. So OSHA requires it. ASME cranes, if it's underhung hoist, it's not an OSHA crane, so it wouldn't need to be done. So if you're doing it, that's great. Document it, but we're just what's myth and what's fact. So fact is, if it's an OSHA type crane specified under OSHA, you have to do it. If it's ASME, you don't have to. You do the inspection, but you don't have to record it.
Excellent.
That's kind of another slide to what I just talked. Got a little bit ahead of myself there. So number 5, you must be certified to inspect and repair hoist and cranes.
All right, what do you all think? You must be certified to inspect and repair hoist and cranes. Fact versus myth? Okay, waiting for a few more of you to vote. Excellent. Looks like, Peter, we are at about 40% think it's fact and 60% think it's a myth. What do you have to say about that one?
No, according to ASB standards, you have to be a qualified person, and that's the person by possession of recognized degree or certificate of professional standing, or who by extensive knowledge, training, experience has successfully demonstrated the ability to solve or resolve problems relating to the subject matter at work. And then oftentimes does the engineer qualify, and you don't have to be an engineer or anything like that. But really what it comes down to is proper training. You have to be properly trained, and from there then your employer will determine if you're the qualified person based on your experience and the training that you have to deem you qualified to do those types of things. Okay, and so we offer all kinds of types of trainings on inspection and repair of cranes and hoisting equipment. So that's one stepping stone to get to that point to repair your equipment. You do not have to be certified. So then the next question, which is kind of related, which is still there, was, well, why get certified then if it's not required? Well, the big thing is, how do we verify competence, right? And certification, it verifies that you've been trained properly, that you understood the materials, you've been tested. I almost feel, and I compare this a lot of times, certification to like getting a driver's license. Well, how does your state know you're competent to drive on the road, right? You take a test, and you take a written test, and you also take a practical test that you can show that you can drive, and you pass those two and you get your license. Well, that's what certification is. How do we know a person is competent, right? And certification then proves, listen, they came to training, they did the practical stuff, they took them apart, put them back together, and then they were tested. And so then we give them that certification that says, yes, they are a competent person. They know where to find what regulations they need to go to, what manufacturing requirements are. And then it also promotes ongoing training. And you have to recertify. So if you want to keep your certification up, you must recertify, and you come back and get more training. And so it keeps the level of safety and level of awareness in the industry. So it's a safe practice to do, is getting certification. But by no means does certification mean an expert. The two get mixed up all the time. Hey, I'm a certified rigger, or I'm a certified crane operator, I'm a certified hoist repair tech. All it means is that you're competently trained and you have a level of competency just like a driver's license. Of course, we know on the road, we wonder how some people got their license sometimes. We have the 16-year-old kid or the 95-year-old grandpa or grandma out there, and then everybody in between. And so it's the same thing with certification.
Well, I have to say, Peter, I see this question asked so much on LinkedIn groups and Twitter, and I mean, you see articles written about it. People are constantly asking questions about what this is, and why to get certified, and if you must be certified, and yes, it's such a hot topic. I'm glad you covered it today.
I mean, yeah, personally, in my opinion, if I owned the company, I would want my technicians, or my maintenance crew certified. I want to verify their competence. I want to see where they're weak in, or where they need more training, just to be sure the job. And certification now, by doing that and getting properly trained, it's going to speed your production up. You'll be better at your job. You'll be more safe at your job, and the equipment will meet the standards of the industry, and you're up to date on that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We get people with 20, 30 years experience that could probably walk around me blindfolded and put our hoist together and take them off. But I guarantee every class, each one of us says, I've learned so many things here that I didn't know before.
Yep.
So.
No, that's great. Whenever I attend your classes as well, even in Charlotte with Perry, they say the same thing. They've been doing it for years, but they learned a few ways to do it better, more efficiently, and that's what it's all about. So
right, and we change things. The industry changes things, so it's you know, we're in the know. We're in on these changes, and we're on these committees, so we share that. And of course, when we change things on our hoist settings and things of that nature, we be sure that we issue those to the certified people.
Yep. Great.
Okay, number 6. I need to disassemble my hoist yearly for inspections.
Okay. What do you think? Fact or myth? I need to disassemble my hoist yearly for inspection. Okay, I think this one is citing in another favor. It looks like about 95% believe it's a myth. 95%. So, were they right? Okay.
Yeah, disassembly is not always required, but we often refer to the owner's manual because the owner's manual will give you some guidance on when you need to disassemble. So that the question would be, well, how often do I need to do it? Or if it's not yearly, then when? Well, a lot of owner's manuals will spell out the amount of hours of use that it's seeing, or after a certain time period of when they want you to go into the gear case and inspect that. But it really requires of what you're finding during your periodic inspection, meaning during that written report, whether it's annually or quarterly, or depending on your severity of service, what that inspector is finding will determine whether they need to go further into that hoist. So if I'm a technician and I'm seeing some overload situation or signs of overload, whether I'm seeing stretched hooks or bent pins, and I'm suspecting, wow, this thing has been overloaded, that would, to me, then, hey, I need to bring this equipment down and I need to break it down and inspect it thoroughly because I don't know what damage is going on inside. And so a lot of people will, and this is where a lot of confusion comes into play, and I see this all the time. What's manual hoist or chain falls? I get this. A lot of people will break down their manual hoist or chain falls every year. Oh, we break them down every year. We go through them and put them back together. Well, what they didn't know is, well, my question, that's a great thing, and I wouldn't stop them from not doing that, but, and they think it's required that they need to do that. Well, then I'll point out a large underhung wire rope hoist unit and say, well, how come you're not disassembling that one every year? It's the same standard that applies to that chain fall as does that large wire rope hoist that's underhung. And they just look at me with this puzzled look and say, well, if you're going to do it for one, then why don't you do it for all? Well, what it comes down to is what you're finding. If the technician's finding things that, hey, you think we need to break this down further, you do so. They can be done in place. Your inspections can be done in place where the hoist is hanging without further disassembly. I always recommend in our classes, hey, it doesn't take much to pop a cover off, and especially an electric hoist. The brake's right there. You can look at it. You can visually look at it, see what's going on. So it doesn't, a minute or so to take a cover off and just take a look at the brake, at least as a minimum, to do that. If for those of you on the call that do not do your periodic inspections and you have third parties coming in, if a third party periodic inspection is coming in, they're doing those inspections from the floor without use of a scissor lift and going up to look at the hoist, they're not doing an adequate job. They should be checking out the mounts and how it's seated up there and looking at the outside structure of that hoist and looking for any damage, things of that nature. So if someone's just walking, I've heard reports that from other companies that, yeah, the guy just walks around and from the floor and visually does it. That's not a periodic inspection. That would be a frequent inspection. Your frequent inspections are done from the floor, and what you visually can see from the floor and is fine. That's an undocumented inspection. But a periodic is a thorough inspection from top to bottom. But no covers need to be removed unless you feel the need to remove them. Okay. And number 7, lucky number 7, we get this all the time. Chain slings require latches on hook.
All right. Let's see what everyone has to say on this one. Chain slings require latches on hooks. Fact or myth? We'll see if what you're finding is what our audience thinks. Okay, we're going to wait for a few more people to vote. A couple more. Great. Okay, we are at 1/3 thinks it's a fact and 2/3 think it's a myth. That's another big split, Peter.
Okay. So if we go by OSHA 1910-84, that is the OSHA spec for slings, for wire rope, chain slings, and synthetic slings. And there is no statement in there whatsoever that says a latch is required on chain slings. Okay, ASME B39, I sit on the ASME B39 committee, and we also do not have that requirement for the latch on a chain sling. And then you can refer back to B3010, which is for hooks, and that you will not find it in there either. So there are hooks out there that don't even have a provision for a latch, so if that statement was true, none of those hooks could be used. And then we always get, well, if there's a provision for a latch, you must have it. And it doesn't say that, right? So I just read what is fact. Do we highly recommend latches? Absolutely. You can see in that picture there, those are what's called latch lock hooks. Those are really robust latches that are integral part of the hooks, and those are nice, and I highly recommend the use of a latch, but there is no requirement for them. Not to be confused with cranes, hoist, and cranes. Hoist and cranes do require the use of a latch unless it constitutes a hazard, meaning what's the hazards? Well, it puts me in a pinch point, or I have to climb something without fall protection. That's a hazard, right? We don't want, then now you have more of a hazard trying to undo a latch than having it. So anything that puts me in more danger of having that latch on there to undo it or rehook it back up, then the requirement is not there. But all cranes and hoists need it, lever hoists need that latch. Okay, so we get that all the time. There's actually a letter of interpretation from OSHA. I believe it came from a gentleman from Ashley Sling. It's right in their website. And it says, yes, you are correct. There is no specification requirement for a latch, but we do feel having a latch is the safe thing. So they basically say the same thing I do. It is a nice means of retaining the hook on a slack condition on the low when you're rigging. However, then they'll cite some other standards for derricks, mobile cranes, and things of that nature, and hoists, which are not a sling, that we do require latches. So that one's always misinterpreted. What we do as a manufacturer, highly recommend the latches, put them on there. The more safety you have, the better it is, again, unless it constitutes a hazard.
Excellent, Peter. Excellent. Yeah, so now it would be a great time for anybody that's been on the call today to ask questions to Peter. It could be about what we've just talked about. Maybe you have a specific question or an add-on question to those that he's covered. So please feel free to type them in the Q&A pane. We'd love to hear them. And in the meantime, while they're doing that, Peter, why don't you go ahead and just do a review on the training?
Yeah, so a lot of these questions, come up, a lot of the questions that we just went over, a lot of things that come up during our classes, and we cover everything from top to bottom. So if you're more into rigging and you want to learn more about rigging inspection, how to use rigging, we have a hands-on qualified rigger workshop. It's 3 days, and you have the option to certify at the end of it through CIC certification. We do overhead crane and hoist inspection certification. We have a couple classes coming up in December. That one we cover the whole entire crane structure and hoists. It's not a repair course, it's more of an inspection course. We go over OSHA cranes and ASME style cranes and everything in between and what those requirements are, CMAA regulations, and those are covered in a 3-day span. And then we have our chain and wire rope hoist repair. Sort of whether you want to do both chain and wire rope or just the chain, it's up to you. You can stay a little longer and do the wire rope at our Tonawanda facility, which is near Niagara Falls, and then we do the chain hoist repair on the road. But that is the breakdown course where we break down all the brands of CO hoists. We go through them all from manual hoist to powered hoist, electric and air, and show you from every little nut and bolt and what little setting you need to require, torque settings, things of that nature. Electrical troubleshooting. So they're very informative courses.
Great. Thank you, Peter. speaking of safety webinars and courses, we've got someone that just, a couple questions coming in. Let me take these questions and then I'm going to launch another polling question regarding our safety webinars. So, can a company install a jib crane on their own without a certified tech on site? This question comes
as long as they do it by the manufacturer's recommendations, that jib cranes often need a special foundation for it, and whoever the manufacturer of that jib crane will give you a drawing of the foundation that jib crane needs, and if you assemble it properly and know the standards that pertain, so that jib crane is going to fall under ASME B3011 and B3016 and B3010 for hooks. I would get those standards. And make sure you do everything by the book, and that's fine. But the manufacturer should supply a lot of that information to you on assembly and installation.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter.
I mean, a certified guy or someone with experience knows what to do and been doing it, but certainly not required.
Okay, excellent. Next question. If a crane is idle for a long period of time, is a load test required before putting the crane back in service? This question comes from Frederick.
That's a very good question. A operational test is required, not a load test, because you did not alter it. So an operational test means you will lift a weight, depending on the number of load supporting parts of chain or wire rope, 50 pounds per part. So if I had a double reeve chain hoist, I would at least have to lift 100 pounds. And I'd go through a pre-operational hoist inspection on it. And I would also have to do the periodic inspection as well, if there no periodic inspection was done on that crane in that time frame. So the periodic inspection we've done, then you want to do the pre-operational inspections and make sure everything is functioning properly, but a load test does not have to be done.
Okay, this next question comes from Steve. What needs to be marked on a bridge if the hoists are not required to match?
Well, on the bridge is the capacity, the actual capacity of the bridge.
Okay, so the actual...
So whatever that engineer that designed that bridge, that's what you marked.
Okay.
Okay, then if you have different hoisting on there, so you can have hoists, you have an auxiliary hoist, a main hoist. The main hoist can equal the capacity of the bridge, the auxiliary hoist does not, but the two can have ratings that if you loaded both of them up, they would exceed the rated load of that bridge, which is you can't do. So it's the rated load of the bridge, and then the operator needs to be trained on, hey, what's your hoisting equipment, what's your trolleys, all that needs to be verified with the operator.
Okay. How does someone get onto an ASME board?
You apply to ASME.
Okay.
So whatever committee you want to be on, you can send a letter in with your resume that you want to be participate in the board of that committee, whether they have room or not, because there is limited space. They can't have too many people, but if there's room on there, and they will vote on you whether they can accept you or not.
Excellent. Good question, Mike. Thank you. Can you explain, another question from a different Mike, can you explain the general duty clause?
Yeah, the general duty clause, what that is kind of the OSHA loophole when they do not have a cited regulation. What the general duty clause is that the employer is to provide a safe working, I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't have the general duty clause in front of me, but the employer is to provide a safe work environment for the employees. So the general duty clause, if OSHA finds something that is going to cause an injury is imminent because of the violation. So let's say your warning tag, which is required to have a warning tag on the pendant of a hoist, which has the do's and don'ts of operating that hoist. Now, if that were to fall off and it was an underhung crane, OSHA doesn't have anything regarding the crane, and would that fall into the general duty clause? And is because that warning label is missing, someone's going to get hurt immediately. Then let's say you had a trained, certified operator, and does that mean he's going to get hurt because the tag fell off? No. That to me does not fall under the general duty clause. However, if they found broken chain or wires on that hoist and it was still being operated, absolutely, that's a general duty clause. That's a accident waiting to happen, and they will cite you on the general duty clause. Now, people get confused in the court of law, which is different, is in a jury trial. Anything is if that warning label was missing and the operator got hurt. So if I was a good lawyer, I would say, well, the warning label is off. That's why he couldn't read the warning label. Therefore, he didn't know it was failure to warn him, and I could possibly win that case. So there's all that combined. So court is different from law, is different from standards. So basically a general duty clause has to be that imminent danger of someone getting injured to cite the general duty clause.
Okay, great. I'm going to launch a quick, we've got about 4 more questions that were asked, which we're going to get to just in 1 second. I want to launch one more polling question, and this is regarding safety webinars. We want a little feedback from you. If all of our recorded safety webinars from 2014 were available to purchase on a USB thumb drive, would you consider buying it? We've been getting a few requests about this, and we'd like to know if this would be something that might interest you. These are available on our YouTube channel. However, a lot of people just want the whole set all together that they can take and put in their computer. So we just want a little feedback from you on here. That would be great. And just be honest with us. We don't want to go through the effort if this isn't something that would really interest you. We want to make it convenient. We've been getting a few requests, so we just wanted a little feedback. Great. And while they're voting there, we'll ask the next question. This is from another Mike. If you are qualified for overhead crane inspections, are you also qualified to inspect jibs on mobile trucks?
No, two different things, two different standards. So if you've been trained on jibs and those are 2 different safety standards and OSHA regulations.
Okay. All right, next one. Our local OSHA inspectors tell our customers they have to have latch kits installed. Can you please explain this?
On hoist and cranes, absolutely. On chain slings, I would ask them to show you the law, because the OSHA is law. They would need to reference the section that it is required. And in 1910-184, that is the law written for chain slings. They can't cite it. It's not there. So, and I'm not saying they're doing their job, saying it's required. It's always a good thing. It's a gray area. Even OSHA inspectors get mixed up. So it's always a good idea to have them. But what about hooks that don't have latch kits? Right? They don't have the provision for one. So what do you do about that? How can you cite one and not the other? It's not there. And there's no statement in that law that says that if there's provisions, you must have it. So it's just not there. To me, it's like, I have a posted speed limit of 55, and I'm a police officer, and I pull you over, like, well, I really wanted you to do 45 because, well, it just seems like a better speed. If there's no law that says I can do that, I can't say it eventually be thrown out. But you have to have the bullets, and so you go to the OSHA standard and you ask them to please cite you on that 1910-184. Show me where that's required. And having the latch and not having the latch, would that fall under general duty clause? Is that an unsafe condition of not having the latch? Well, latches are not load bearing. If I'm doing rigging, the latch is not load bearing. If the load ever shifted to the latch, well, it's coming out anyway, whether the latch is there or not. They weren't meant to take the load. So you rigged something wrong. I'd be more concerned of why you rigged it wrong than having that latch. The latch is there for visual. One, it's a great visual to see if the hook has been pulled, because sometimes a slight pull on the hook where it's opened up, the latch will spring, and that's a great red flag for the operator or rigger to say, oh, something's wrong. And but it's more for a slack condition. So if I'm rigging a large load and I'm going around and it prevents my hooks from falling out and being tip loaded, it just kind of rendered itself improper. Again, proper training would prevent that anyway. You would just slightly get everything snug and before it even left the ground to evaluate your rigging before you even left the ground, so that should be done. So it goes down with proper training. Again, latches are a good thing. I think if you can have them on there without constituting a hazard, then certainly put them on there. But I'm not sure where they're getting that. You must have a latch kit handy where that is latch kit in hand. It's a gray area, and I'd ask him to cite the paragraph, because they have to do that, cite the paragraph where that comes out of 1910-184. Why is it in that spec if you're going to cite me on it?
Thank you, Peter. We have time for a couple more questions, and we have more asked than we can answer. So we're going to take two more that were asked, and then the rest, Peter will respond directly. And if you're interested, I can also include those questions and answers in the follow-up email I'll send you, so that you'll have access to that information as well. So the next question is, if a monorail is rated at 1 ton and you put a 2-ton hoist up, does capacity need to be changed on the hoist to reflect the capacity of the monorail, since the monorail capacity marking is optional?
Oh, that's an actual letter of interpretation that came from ASME. The answer is no. You would keep the rated load under. So the question here is, do I change it? And no, you want to keep that marking on. And I'm going to read you right out of ASME here. The rated load markings of each cone shall be retained and protected and not changed to suit a temporary situation. When rated load markings are changed to suit a temporary situation, the original rated load markings can be lost. This might cause the hoisting equipment to be improperly marked or over-rated, loaded, marked in other subsequent temporary applications. The operator of the hoisting system must be adequately trained to determine the maximum rated load of the system from the rated load markings and make sure the maximum load does not exceed the rated load of the component with the least rated load.
Okay, great.
And then, the background of that was, assuming a system is comprised of a following setup: a jib crane of 750 pounds, a trolley of 1,000 pounds, and a hoist of 500 pounds. Do they derate everything? And the answer to them was no.
Okay, perfect. These are such, I'm really thankful that you all are typing all these in and getting these addressed. So, okay, and the last one is, should you do a load test after changing a rope on a crane or any work to gearbox? Should you do a load test after changing a rope on a crane or any work to gearbox?
On an underhung hoist, rope chain is excluded because it's already been tested for you. So it's been tested at the factory, so that you could, according to ASME standards, you would not have to do a load test of changing out the rope. You would want to do the break-in that for the manufacturer. There's a break-in period where you do want to break in that rope and make sure you get all the twists and things out of it. That's a manufacturer recommendation, but no load test is required. The gearbox is considered a transmission part. It's not categorized under ASME as a load-bearing components. Although, if something were to happen to certain gears, what would happen? The load comes down, right? So, again, this is my opinion. I would highly recommend a load test if you change out gears, but it is not considered a load-bearing component. Even the brake is considered a transmission part, which, when I found that out, kind of blew my mind a little bit. What do you mean? Geez, the brake, we're not going to load test the brake. It's considered a transmission part. Now, again, my opinion, if I would highly recommend one. But again, that's my opinion.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're really big on not exceeding the time that you have agreed to commit to us, which is 45 minutes this morning. So we are wrapping it up now. I've got one more quick polling question, if you can answer, and then the final 3 questions, as I mentioned, that were outstanding from James, Frederick, actually there are 2 from Frederick, and 1 more from Mike. Peter Cooke will respond directly, and as I said, if we're able to, we will include that in our follow-up email. So if you can just vote on this, we just want to get your feedback. Thank you. And just waiting for a few more people to vote. On a scale of 1 to 4, how important is it for your company to get personnel properly trained in the safe use, care, and inspection of rigging, hoist, and cranes? That's really what we're after. So we just want to get your feedback. Thank you very much for that. We'll close out of that and then just conclude for today. So we hope that you found this information helpful. If you have any more questions for Peter, feel free to type them in. As I said, he'll respond personally to you on that. But I just want to thank you all for coming and let you know how you can connect with us beyond today. We do have, this is our 20th safety webinar that we've recorded, that we've presented and recorded in the last 2 years. All of these safety webinars are on our YouTube channel. So feel free to go check us out there. You'll be receiving a link to this one in the next couple days. Hopefully by Friday of this week you should have it, if not sooner. You can also find us if you're on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+. We're on Instagram now. Love to share photos there if any of you are on there and have some cool hoist and rigging crane photos or just some interesting shots relating to our industry. We love to share them and would love to connect with you there. And we also have a blog. You can get to all these places on our website at cmworks.com. We have little icons on the upper right-hand corner that will take you there. But our blog also has tons of technical articles that have been written by more than 20 people at our company that will give you some good information about our products and industry, and we try to make it very educational in nature. So if any of you have any ideas for other future topics for our safety webinars, we'd love to have them. You can also just respond back to the email we'll send you with those ideas or any comments on the safety webinar you'd like to share. We'd love to hear them. We will be taking a break in December, and we'll be joining back in January for our next round of safety webinars for 2015. So thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate your time and attention. And Peter, if you have any last minute comments you'd like to make.
I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and for December, we're not doing a webinar in December, but look for a very important holiday message from us with safety message for the holidays that we'll be sending out.
Yes, so thank you everybody, and again, like Peter said, we wish you for those in the U.S., a very nice Thanksgiving, and we look forward to connecting with you again in January. Bye-bye.